Come see the Portland Art Museum's new exhibit where they're showcasing the vibrant, surreal, and playful energy of rock concert posters and fashion from 1960s San Francisco. Aptly named Psychedelic Rock Posters and Fashion of the 1960s, this collection of nearly 200 posters and eclectic vintage fashion is on display through the end of March next year. But you can also check the Portland Art Museum calendar for lectures, movies, and more related to the Psychedelic Posters exhibit at portlandartmuseum.org. Hey Portland, are you ready to vote? The League of Women Voters has reliable, nonpartisan information about what's on your ballot. You can watch candidate interviews, listen to podcasts, read balanced explanations of ballot measures, and even learn more about ranked choice voting, which seems like a thing we all need to do. Go to lwvpdx.org or to vote411.org, and there you can view just the candidates and measures on your ballot. Vote with confidence with lwvpdx.org. Now that we all have our ballots, we're continuing our series of mayoral candidate interviews we taped during the summer. And since so much has happened between then and now, our executive producer, John Notarianni, will be joining me to fill you in on what has changed since we last spoke with every candidate. And today on CityCast Portland, we're re-airing our conversation with City Commissioner and mayoral hopeful, Mingus Mapps. Mingus Mapps has had a tough time breaking through the race, even with an early start. Recent polls are not showing a clear path to victory for his campaign, but with a good chunk of undecided voters and our new ranked choice voting system, he has just as good a chance to shine through in the following rounds as any. It's Thursday, October 24th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. John, thanks again for joining me. I seem to remember that you originally thought Mapps had a really good shot at winning. Like, you were betting. You were like, this is the guy. How are your feelings about his chances now?
Yeah, this is why you don't make predictions on a mayoral race a year ahead of time.
2 drinks in at the Garrison.
I was very wrong. I mean, but think back to a year ago, right? Mingus Mapps was the front runner. You know, he was the first to say that he was running for mayor back in July of 2023. You know, this was before his city council colleagues, Rene Gonzalez and Carmen Rubio, were even in the race. So there was a time where it looked like, yeah, Mingus could win this.
I mean, I guess I can kind of see your point. But when we talked to him in June, most of the headlines that he had been making were about his campaign's money troubles. That same month, Willamette Week reported that his campaign owed $17,000 to vendors, but only had less than like $3,000 on hand. And then in late August, the campaign was still trying to confirm if he even was able to unlock the city matching funds program. Like, they couldn't even figure out if he had like 750 donors. So yeah, I don't know. It just didn't seem like he had a lot of support, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he did ultimately pass that threshold to get into the matching funds program. But like, as of today, we're taping on the 22nd. He is a distant fourth in the mayor's race in terms of donors. He's had about 1,250 individual donors. And in terms of the total contributions he's received, at about $87,000. I mean, there are other candidates that are way, way far ahead of him. And I think the race really ran away from him this summer. You know, it felt like Carmen Rubio and Rene Gonzalez were the 2 candidates that everyone was talking about. And even when the 2 of them started making negative headlines last month with their driving records, Mingus Mapps made a big push talking about himself as a responsible steward of government. I don't really think it moved the needle much, though. You know, I didn't see a lot coming out of that really felt like he had a jump in visibility, let alone public perception. And he did, you know, recently push himself back into the headlines along with his colleagues, Dan Ryan and Rene Gonzalez. They're pushing to dissolve the city's agreement with the county to fund the Joint Office of Homeless Services. That came out last week. What'd you think about that, Claudia?
I really was surprised that all 3 of them, everyone's so mad at them.
Yeah.
And it was a bad idea then. Like, I thought that they would realize, like, oh, nobody likes this. Nobody wants this. I'm going to stop. But I think they're trying to be mavericks, you know? Like, I don't know. And this came up when we spoke to him back in June.
Back in June, yeah.
Yeah. He was right in the middle of also considering, you know, not going forward with signing the contract. And now it's getting his name back in headlines. but it's, also boosting Renee Gonzalez and Dan Ryan, who's running for city council. Because these aren't the only headlines he's made, though. Like, he's also had headlines with, a lot of transit issues because he was the head of PBOT.
Which we get into in the interview of you asking him some, hard but fair questions about his stances on these issues. And I was frankly surprised the way that he responded in this interview that we're about to play back.
Yeah, he was the only candidate that refused to answer one of our final questions when we asked him what his campaign song would be. It was just like a fun, not a throwaway, but just like we wanted to get more personality out of our candidates, find out like, okay, what do you listen to? Who are you? And he said, no, Claudia, I'm not going to give you that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But who's endorsing him?
His support is pretty anemic. You look at someone like Carmen Rubio, fellow council member, fellow mayoral candidate, has the support of Governor Tina Kotek and several other elected officials. Renee Gonzalez has the support of Nathan Vasquez, the district attorney-elect, and also a number of the public safety unions. Maps hasn't had nearly the level of high-profile local officials supporting him so far in this race. But, looking at editorial endorsements, he also hasn't been doing great. He was endorsed by The Scanner, and Willamette Week ranked him 4th. Not a super strong endorsement. Here's what they had to say. The Mingus Maps of 3 years ago might have been our mayoral pick today. He has shown little ability to make measurable difference at City Hall, and in fact, he has been unable to complete some of his biggest policy ideas. We don't doubt Maps' dedication to the city nor his intelligence. He just doesn't do much. Ooh.
I mean, I do want to say that when I asked you who endorsed him, you basically told me who endorsed everybody else. I was like, John, who endorsed him? And you're like, well, let me tell you who endorsed Rubio and Gonzalez. I was like, yeah, I know, but who endorsed Maps? And you're like, it was like a long way of saying not many.
Not a long list, yeah.
He did get 2 union endorsements. SEIU, Local 49, did endorse him. It's a powerful union, as well as the local union representing nearly 1,000 public service employees at the city, which is Protect 17. So that is something.
Yeah.
Do you think he has a path to victory?
I mean, in a conventional election, a winner-take-all election, probably not. But we are in this new weird ranked choice system where somebody who isn't everyone's number one pick could still coast to victory, Mm-hmm. And if enough people think of Mingus Maps as their second place choice on his message of sort of responsible, level-headed governance, it's possible that he could end up rising to the top in the ranked choice system. But that would mean that Mingus Maps would need to be everybody's second choice for mayor. And I just don't see that happening right now.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
But it could happen. It absolutely could happen. I'm not making any more predictions on Mingus Maps. I have been wrong enough times that I'm just going to give this one a shrug.
Yeah, I personally think he's pissed too many people off. And I mean that policy-wise. Just throughout his career in the city, he's upset way too many people for him to get a second rank.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, our interview with Mingus Maps, which originally aired back in June. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. Stream beautiful, hand-picked films anytime, anywhere. And be sure to catch the cult classic The Fall, now streaming exclusively on Mubi in a spectacular new 4K restoration. Filmed across 24 countries over a period of 4 years, Tarsem Singh's ostentatious epic sees a bedridden stuntman played by a magnetic Lee Pace spin an escapist fantasy for a hospitalized young girl. The story transports her into the exotic landscapes of her imagination, backdropped by magnificent costumes and stunning locations. So don't miss your chance to experience this film like never before. You could start streaming The Fall and more for 30 days free at mubi.com/citycast. That's mubi.com/citycast. Did you know you can find the best deals at the Habitat for Humanity Portland Region Restores? You can shop for new and gently used furniture, appliances, lighting, building materials, decor, home goods, and more, all at discounted prices of 25 to 75% off. Let me say that again. That's 25 to 75% off your favorite home and furniture brands. And bonus, every purchase helps fund local Habitat home building and home repair programs. Plus, you're shopping sustainably at the Restore by giving pre-loved items new life and keeping usable items out of our local landfills. Shop online or in-store at the Restore locations in Beaverton, Gresham, and Portland. The Restores are open 7 days a week. Visit pdxrestore.org to find a Restore near you, and there you can shop, save, and give back today.
This episode is brought to you by Financial Times. When it comes to voicing or acting on our opinions, why are some people more confident than others? With the Financial Times, you form your own opinions with conviction based on unbiased and trusted reporting. FT journalists tackle global issues with an impartial and rigorous mindset, providing the facts and analysis that you need to make up your own mind. Make up your own mind with Financial Times. Visit ft.com/thejournal to read free articles and subscribe.
What's something your kids have done growing up in Portland that you never had the chance to?
Partly because I did grow up here, one of the subtle pleasures of parenting is to take your kids to things that you did and cherished when you were growing up. And we are today at the final day of City Fest, so the end of the Rose Festival. And one of the great, amazing things that we've gotten to do over the last several weeks are participate in parades and help launch the events with the fireworks and whatnot. Certainly, I was attending those events, but they have, by virtue of my current day job, they have access to some amazing rooms that I never had access to. And in general, I think one of the insights my kids are getting is, they see the life of a local public servant close up, and they are profoundly unimpressed by my work. But I'm glad that they get a chance to see it. I hope that it resonates with them through time, and I'm sure they will think back on these years in years to come and have a deeper appreciation of what we're doing and what it meant.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know that even like rock stars' kids think that they're lame. Having known I know, let's put it this way. I know many elected officials who have young children, and I can assure the public that none of their kids are particularly impressed with their parents who were mayors and senators and members of Congress and members of council. And that, I think, is one of the things that helps keep our electeds grounded and connected to the city and the people that we serve. Yeah. Well, if you could just pick one thing that isn't working in Portland right now, what would it be and how would you fix it?
Oh, our house and service system. Right now we got about 6,000 people who sleep on our sidewalks every night. That's a human tragedy for the people who are out there, sleeping in tents and sleeping bags in our parks and sidewalks and whatnot. And it's also, frankly, puts stresses on our entire communities. I live in the inner Southeast, so my kids, make their own way home from school at the end of the day. It is not uncommon for them to have unfortunate interactions with folks who are on the streets and having mental health challenges. I also live right across the street from a little convenience store that probably we cannot go 2 or 3 days without having a very unfortunate situation inside that store, and that store is owned by an immigrant family. The work that they do there supports 2 little kids, a father and a mother and a brother-in-law and a lady from the neighborhood. It's just your classic small Portland business. They are struggling to stay open because of the theft they face, the sort of chaos that can break out in there. Very frustrating given the frankly, hundreds of millions of dollars that our region spends trying to get people housed and connected to treatment. In terms of how we turn this around, well, we need to do a lot more work around making our homeless service system and our mental health services work better. I don't think that we're in a situation where we're underinvesting in these services at this point, but we've done a terrible job at is actually building a continuum of services that moves people from the sidewalks into supportive housing. Frankly, the steps that we need to take in order to get from here to there are to clarify the relationship between what the city does in this space and what the county does in this space. Over here on the city side, we primarily are in the business of doing sticks and bricks kind of things. Like I'm the commissioner in charge of roads, the Water Bureau, and the Bureau of Environmental Services. And that's true basically for all of my colleagues on council. We kind of do what it says on the names of our bureaus. On the other hand, the county is in charge of mental health services, fundamentally in charge of houselessness services. But even though we have two different roles in this space and we interact all day, every day, the nature of that interaction is often underdefined, is often undercoordinated, and frankly does not serve the folks who are sleeping on our streets or trying to operate a business or grow a family particularly well. So I'm deeply committed as a member of council and as mayor of Portland to make that relationship between the city and county work better. My goal is every time a city employee interacts with someone who's on the streets and needs help, we have a partner at the county that we can call and connect that person to mental health services, drug and alcohol services, supportive housing services.
Yeah.
We've made some progress in that space, but we're not there yet.
And you're saying the way that you as a mayor would fix it is by connecting or basically clarifying the roles between the city and the county and maybe getting the city and the county to work a little bit better?
Yeah.
So how would you go about that?
So here, let me give you a great example. So especially during the pandemic, the city set up safe rest villages and our task sites, which are basically larger safe rest villages. Those have been remarkably effective in actually providing folks who are sleeping on our streets with a place to go. And, one of the things that we've actually discovered and are delighted to know now is actually when you move someone from the sidewalk and get them into one of these safe rest villages, actually they get better, in the space of about 3 or 4 months, and they're kind of ready to move on to a supportive housing service space. So, actually ready to move inside. Now, one of the challenges that we face right now with the county, with our task sites, which are our larger safe rest villages, is we have people who are actually kind of literally ready to move into housing. They've kind of stabilized and whatnot, but we can't get housing vouchers out of the county in order to actually move them into apartments, which is incredibly disappointing for a number of reasons. Number one, we have people who are ready for the services. Number two, if we can't move people out of our safe rest villages into that more supportive housing situation, then the capacity of our safe rest villages freezes. If we can move basically 4 cohorts of folks through our safe rest villages in a year, we're then going to make a huge difference in actually getting people off the street permanently. On the other hand, if we reach capacity at our safe rest villages and we're not able to move them on and to supportive housing, which is very much a county's responsibility, then the whole system freezes up. And right now, we are fundamentally frozen up.
That's a great example, but I'm asking like how you as the mayor would make it so the city and the county did work better.
And in that example, like we have a joint office of homeless services where the city and the county come together and basically agree on how much we're going to throw into this houseless services space. And we should agree on what specific services that we provide and frankly, what our goals are. Right now, we have a contract that vaguely defines that relationship, but it is yet to define what outcomes we're pushing towards, where we have yet to define what services the city provides and what services the county provides. Frankly, all that we're really doing is shuffling money back and forth without a focus goal in terms of what outcomes we expect or even what services we specifically agree to provide our clients. Now, frankly, one of the things that we're working awfully hard on, and this indeed was the meeting I was in right before I came on to chat with you, is to clearly define in the joint office contract what the city provides, what the county provides, how much dollars go there, what our metrics for success look like, and frankly, what do we do when in the unfortunate situation where we're not meeting our goals.
Okay. Well, I didn't quite hear what you would do as mayor, but do you intend to vote for the joint office?
Let's dive into this because this is very important. And frankly, this is how we can get out of this. So the city and the county have a contract that defines the role that each of us should play in the houseless service systems. One of the things I will do as mayor is demand clarity around what that contract looks like. So we're talking about how many dollars the city puts in, the specific services that the county will provide in exchange for that, and the outcomes we expect, and what do we do when those outcomes are not reached. And frankly, there are two people at the table who will ultimately shape that contract. It is the mayor of Portland and it is the chair of Multnomah County. And what I am sharing with you today are the values and goals that I bring into those negotiations with the county. And if we can't agree on that, then I think we're going to have to fundamentally reimagine the joint office, because it's no longer a joint office, and we're going to have to move in a different direction. My goal is to bring clarity to the work that we've done under the umbrella of the joint office. If we can't come up with a satisfactory agreement, which meaningfully moves people off the sidewalks, then we move to our plan B, which is to frankly have the city develop its strategies for housing folks independent of the joint office, which frankly is not a sustainable position. Ultimately, we need to get there. One of the things I bring in this race is clarity to that conversation.
Real quick. So that contract is happening this year. It's not going to wait for you to become mayor, correct? Like that is something that is in vote right now and needs to pass before next year, because it's going to dictate, like you stated, how the joint office will move forward. So my question, do you intend to vote for the joint office contract this year?
Well, I will tell you, I met with the mayor's team earlier this morning. We have a very new iteration of the joint office contract, which frankly looks very different from the agreement that we had even 2 or 3 weeks ago. I have not had a chance to fully read the new contract. That's my homework for this week. I will also say one of the things that we're likely to see in the contract moving forward is a series of benchmarks that need to be achieved over time.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but our time is tight and we do have a lot to get to. So if you're cool with this, we're just going to move on to the next question.
Of course.
Last year, you and I also talked about Vision Zero, the city's goal to eliminate all traffic crash fatalities and serious injuries on Portland streets by 2025, right? And earlier this year, Portland City Council adopted the first update to the Vision Zero action plan since 2019. So a lot, has changed since 2019, just got the updates. What's actually changing?
Sure. Well, number one, we need to be transparent here, especially since the pandemic. Traffic fatalities in Portland have been heading in the wrong direction. I'll point out this is not unique to Portland. This is happening nationwide, and I think it's part of a broad cultural shift in both traffic enforcement and how people drive. In the Portland space, one of the things that we're continuing to do in order to drive these traffic fatalities down is to, make new investments in our transportation infrastructure, speed kills. So anything that we can do to reduce speeds in our high crash corridors is going to make a difference in terms of saving lives. Over the course of the next year, I'm going to double the number of traffic cameras that we have on the streets. That provides another incentive. Frankly, one of the puzzles that happens in this space is that we see that traffic fatalities are increasing dramatically, but it's also not the case that our infrastructure is getting that much worse. Indeed, we're improving our transportation infrastructure, but traffic fatalities are increasing. So what's changing here? And frankly, one of the things that's changed in this space is enforcement. We have, in the last several years, we have dramatically reduced the number of cops that are out there enforcing the speed limit. I think that has interacted with a change in how people drive. And the result are, more people dying on our streets. So one of the things that I'm an advocate for and been successful at achieving in my time on council is convincing my colleagues to invest and grow our traffic enforcement. We're making good progress in this space. Indeed, I think that if you take a look at the fatality numbers, we're heading in the right direction. But let me assure you, we are not in a position right now to achieve our true goal, which is to eliminate traffic fatalities in the next couple of years. That's going to take a lot of work, but there are a couple of ways to do it. You can do it through better infrastructure, you can do it through enforcement, and you got to do it through cultural change.
Yeah.
And as a commissioner in charge of PBOT, I've worked hard to make progress in each of those spaces. And as your next mayor, those will be my goals too.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the numbers because they're not getting better. According to Bike Portland, there are 23 deaths this year as of June 4th, which is similar to the 27 deaths by the same date in 2023. So things seem to be about the same as last year, not getting better. And last year we saw a record number of traffic deaths. But at the recent council meeting, you did state, and this is a quote, "Where we have invested, we have had success." Can you explain what's working and actually saving lives, being that the numbers aren't saying that we are actually saving lives?
Sure. Well, number one, the numbers that you cite do show a real reduction. I think every life matters. So I wouldn't dismiss that. And one of the things that we see is most of our fatalities happen in spaces where on a handful of roads, basically are high crash corridors. These are places where people are driving. These are roads that carry a lot of traffic and have high speeds. So when we go into a space like that and provide better lighting, provide crosswalks, reduce the speed limit, add speed cameras, do more enforcement, one of the things that we consistently see is that traffic fatalities do go down. You can take a look at the work that we've done out on Division and pretty much all of our high traffic corridors. Where you make an intervention, you do tend to see progress. Now, are we doing enough work in this space in order to bring us down to zero? Well, the answer there is clearly no. We got probably 24 high traffic fatality corridors in our city. You also have a bureau that is primarily funded through a local gas tax and parking meter revenues. Gas taxes and parking meter revenues are both on decline. So one of our challenges is, we don't have enough dollars to bring into this space. But one of the things that we do know is that the interventions that we do have work. Speed kills. If you get hit by a car on your bike going 10 miles an hour, you are likely to survive that one. If you get hit by a car that's going 40 miles an hour, you are not going to survive that.
I'm also curious what you think your accomplishments have been as a commissioner. That you have taken stances on major issues, but sometimes have backed away from them, or those
Where
issues.
have I backed away?
Revising the charter reform process in 2022.
I don't think that's correct.
It is. You opposed Commissioner Rubio's vision to reform the city's permitting system, but then you ultimately voted in favor of it. You also voted against extending the Joint Office of Homeless Service contract last year, but were outvoted on the council. But I'm asking you, what do you think your key successes are as your time as commissioner?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for the question. I've served during a remarkable time. If you think back to where we were when I first came into office 3.5 years ago, homicides were at record levels. One of the things I demanded and set a challenge to our city office, let's bring down homicides by about, I think, 15% a year. Frankly, it took us a little bit of time to actually bend that curve, but we've actually have done that. And we still got a long ways to go. The Portland that we see today does not look like the Portland of 2015, where we might have seen 16 homicides or something. But we are certainly in a place where violent crimes are down dramatically, property crimes are down dramatically. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done in my bureaus. I'm the commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau, Environmental Services, and PBOT.
What is it that you're proud about? Because I'm sure there is reasons, of course.
Sure.
You've been doing, So just give me an example
Let's talk about. I'll tell you. Take a look at our. If you've lived in Portland for a long time, go back. When I was a kid in Portland, you couldn't swim in the Willamette River. It wasn't a good idea because of all the pollution that was in there. I'll tell you, as the commissioner in charge of environmental services, I have worked relentlessly to build the infrastructure and enforce the laws that keep pollution from our river. I will tell you, you might have a couple of heavy rainy days where we might have some overflows, but probably 360 days a year you can swim in the Willamette River. I'm the commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau. We have some of the best water in the nation. On most days we serve about 1 million people clean water every day of the year. Some of the best water that you can find in North America. And we are building the infrastructure to make sure that system remains robust for generations to come.
the river was swimmable before you came in. I mean, a lot of that came because of the big pipe completion in 2011, making it so it's no longer, sewer water isn't running into it. So I'm glad that you're upkeeping, but I'm just saying, taking credit for a 2011 project.
Well, I mean, the work that we do, all the infrastructure, in fact, all the infrastructure that we build in environmental services is designed to keep water and our wastewater and other pollutants out of our rivers.
And they've been doing a great job, for sure.
Well, yeah. I agree. Our environmental services folks are true environmental heroes, incredibly proud of the work they've done. I also believe that we've made incredible progress in terms of moving the conversation forward and in a positive direction around houselessness. I think if you go back from 2016 to the present day, I think houselessness has exploded. I think we finally have a path and a plan that can actually begin to get people off the streets.
Well, let's talk about clarity, because you said, you as a mayor, as a candidate, you want to bring clarity. Yeah. And I mean, I gotta say, I feel like that's something Portlanders have firmly expressed wanting, is transparency from city government and clarity and honesty from its city leaders.
Yeah.
But I want to ask about some of the communication that you've been quoted. Now, there was a recent back and forth on a proposed bike lane on Southwest 4th Avenue. It was reported that you were pushing for the project despite protests from the Portland Metro Chamber. However, Willamette Week reported that the Chamber CEO, Andrew Hone, said you promised to make major cutbacks to the Southwest 4th Avenue project, but then you changed your stance publicly. So he said, no, that's not what he told me. So what actually happened? Is Hone misremembering?
Yes. I mean, I've been clear and transparent, and I have not changed my position on this. I can't control what other people say. It is true the business community downtown is deeply concerned about some of the improvements that we're going to make on Southwest 4th. I have been interactive and collaborative with stakeholders in this space. We'll be paving Southwest 4th. We'll be making better curb cuts. We'll be adding some bike infrastructure, but I think some folks are particularly concerned about the impact that the bike infrastructure will have in this space, mostly because they can point to projects around the city that they go, this did not work well for us. I've done a lot of education about why the plans that we have in place for Southwest have worked effectively. I think if you look at the record, my words on this have not changed, and I also cannot impact or change what other folks say in this space. So we might actually talk to our good friends over at the Portland Chamber of Commerce to get their perspective on this, but I have not wavered on this one bit.
But this also seems like a small deal, but it's important as well. So if we're talking about clarity, Bike Portland reported confusion about your stance on whether, and it's so small, but the revenue of the local gas tax, what that money was going to go to. And at the time you were drumming up support, it's already been successfully voted in. And there was some confusion if it was going to be spent on bike infrastructure. So during your speech to labor union members who you were trying to get endorsement from for that tax, you stated, and this is a quote, "I emphasize these are not funds that are being used to build bike lanes that drive everybody crazy." And you ensured it would focus on bread and butter, basic street maintenance. But 6 days prior, you told a member of the Metro Climate Action Team that the tax would go to, and here's another quote from you, "maintaining and improving our bike infrastructure that helps keep people safe." And I'm sure bike infrastructure maintenance may not be the same as, say, creating new bike lanes from scratch, but you colored your stance for who you thought you were speaking to and what they wanted to hear in a way that doesn't really lend itself to clarity. I mean, even within that same conversation that you had with the union members, one of them was like, "Well, I ride my bike to work every day, and I kind of do want bike lanes." And you're like, "Don't worry, this money's going to all, modes of transportation, including bike infrastructure." But again, people were visibly confused, what you meant, and that's not clear.
Sure. Well, let me try to be clear now, Claudia.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Fixing Your Streets is a program that we use to raise dollars to do basically about a third of the road infrastructure maintenance that I do. So this is potholes, filling potholes, paving roads, fixing broken street lights, and other basic infrastructure. So when we're doing our basic projects here, I think in the initial comment that you shared with me, and then indeed, I think this is probably where some of the confusion came from, is taking context words that I say out of context. On the one hand, I think I talked about bike projects that drive people crazy, and I think you can easily find Portlanders where we go in. PBOT is a transformational bureau. We often go in and fundamentally reimagine how a space works. Frankly, those dollars are not the dollars that we use fixing our streets from. If we're going to do a major project which fundamentally reimagines the space, we're probably getting an outside grant in order to do that. Fixing our streets is what we use for basic stuff. You're not going to see fixing our streets projects go through and build a bridge that doesn't allow cars on it, for example. But you will see fixing our streets dollars go into, will we go and pave a road? Could we use some fixing our streets dollars to add a bike lane? For sure. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. The main thing I was trying to communicate when we're having that discussion about how to fund our roads for the next 4 or 5 years is, the fixing our streets dollars are incredibly important because of the basic dollars that we use for basic maintenance and infrastructure work. These are not the dollars that are kind of transformative, game-changing moonshot projects.
But it also seems like these kind of like unclear or misunderstandings occurred within your own bureaus where they're like, well, I thought this was happening, but I guess this is happening. And I mean, I don't want to go all the way into it, but I am
would help
talking
because I have no idea what you're talking about in this space. I meet with my bureau directors all the time.
Oh, sure.
Where were my bureau directors confused?
Well, I'm speaking specifically about Millicent Williams during the Broadway bike lane. It was a little bit of a scandal within the biking community because she stated that they were going to go forward with blocking this lane, and it contradicted a statement from the Bureau and from you. She was saying, this is what we were going to do. This is what we were told to do. And then you're just like, I never said that. But then there was emails that contradicted that. So that's what I'm saying. There's a confusion. You're shaking your head, but I mean, it is reported. And that was really confusing. And even if you're like, well, that's not what I said, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter what's right, what's wrong. It's the confusion. It's the non-clarity of like people aren't clear about where you stand, where you want things to go, including your bureau. I mean, that's not clarity.
Well, Claudia, I think what you might be pointing to is maybe the quality of reporting that happens in this space.
Okay, it was the quality.
I've worked very closely I meet with my bureau directors, certainly every week, and certainly my team is in conversation with them consistently. I gave my PBOT director the instruction to move forward, talk to the stakeholders on Southwest Broadway to see where we could make improvements to make that road work better. So we made some changes along there, which I think, for the most part, have worked out great. I think the reporting on this, frankly, I did not recognize, the reporting on this did not jive up with my experience. And since I'm the guy who actually is giving the directions and doing the work, I would expect and think that like my experience in this should matter. I have no influence over what blogs publish.
Well, how would you avoid these kind of miscommunications as mayor of Portland? Like, what do you think is a good route?
I will be transparent and truthful, and I will tell you when things. I'll tell you things. I'll tell you the good news, and I'll tell you the bad news. I think one of the things that you do not see with me or my administration is actually the kind of flip-flopping that you seem to suggest that I'm doing. That is actually just not part of our brand.
Well, thank you so much for going through some of these questions with me. We really appreciate your time. Last question. When you leave town, I'm curious, like, what you miss the most when you're on work trips or vacations. Like, is there anything that you're just like, when I get back to Portland, this is what I'm doing?
Well, I work every day, so I don't actually get to leave town very often. Certainly, when I'm away, I miss the city. I miss our culture. I miss our local businesses. I miss our friends. One of the reasons why I am raising my family in Portland is I believe that Portland is truly one of the most compelling cities in North America. We live in a beautiful geographic area. The folks who live in this town tend to be kind, creative, and deeply caring. I'm excited about our city. I think we have a vision for the future, which is compelling and could be a model for the world. So it's one of the reasons why, frankly, I don't leave and I don't take vacations, because I think we have some deeply compelling work to get done in this space.
All right, Mingus. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And now for some events happening this week. Every Thursday on the show, we like to bring you a few recommendations to help you plan your weekend. Here's what we got. Tonight at the Old Church in Southwest Portland at 6 p.m., you can hear a curated night of telltale storytellers at their 3rd annual Ghost Show. On top of stories, there's also a maker's market, beer tasting, live music, comedy, and drag. They're selling it as a nice party with ghosts. Total entrance fee is $25.31. And starting at 7:30 p.m. this Friday through Sunday, Bloody Vox is back with a hybrid production blending cinema and live performance. Tickets are $50 and going fast, but there are still plenty of tickets for their family-friendly matinee on Sunday at 4 p.m. with a Halloween-themed workshop happening an hour before. You can catch it all at the Body Vox Dance Center in Northwest Portland. And if you're looking for free events this weekend, this Saturday at 10 a.m., you can attend a totally free class at PCC Rock Creek, all about gardening with Pacific Northwest native plants. They even have an introduction to the Backyard Habitat Certification Program if you've been wondering how that works. No registration needed. For even more local events and news, sign up for our daily newsletter, Hey Portland. You can also see the details of everything I listed at portlandcitycast.fm/events. We'll throw a link in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.